We're back.
Hey. What you got for us today?
Well, today I thought I would answer a question, or we would answer a question.
Okay.
Does nachoing or nacho parenting mean I ignore my stepkids?
No, next.
That's not good enough answer. Okay. My process of using the nacho parenting was extreme because we were in such a bad place.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, the stepkids would come back in from being gone to their moms or whatever. And when they would come back in, I used to say, "Hey, I'm glad you're home," or "Good to see you." And they would ignore me.
Mm-hmm.
Made me livid. Livid. So I decided I'm not going to say anything to them. It's not ignoring them. It's not engaging.
Right. So if they came in and they said, "Lori, how was your day?"
Mm-hmm.
Then you would respond to them.
Right.
But you just wouldn't start the conversation.
Right. Because if I started the conversation and they didn't respond, then I immediately got upset,
Mm-hmm.
got mad, told you I was mad, told you how disrespectful your kids were,
Mm-hmm.
and how you should do something about it.
That's exactly what I heard.
Yep.
You're a crappy parent.
So by my not saying anything, there was no Lori getting mad. There was no Lori fussing at David. There was no Lori complaining about David's kids.
Right.
And we noticed not long after that, one of them started saying, "Oh, is Lori home? I can't wait to show her this."
Mm-hmm.
So that shifted. Now, I'm not saying it was the next day. I'm not saying it was the next week, but it happened quickly, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
And another example is if you're in the kitchen and the stepkid goes, "Hey, can you hand me a cup?" You don't ignore them. And you don't say, "Go ask your dad." You're right there at the cups, right?
Right.
Now, if the kid comes to you and says, "Hey, can I have this donut?" Knowing you're getting ready to eat dinner,
Mm-hmm.
don't say no. That's when you say, "Go ask your dad."
Yeah.
Or "Go ask your mom."
Or can I go next door to my friend's house or something like that?
So if somebody want to go to Mama's house, a couple of houses down,
Mm-hmm.
if they came to me and said, "Hey, I'm going to Mama's," I'll be like, "You need to talk to your dad." Or "You need to ask your dad."
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Or if they ask what was for dinner, which was a huge trigger for me, and it still is. I'm working on it, but it is a struggle.
Yep.
I do not like it. I don't know why I am responsible for feeding everybody or figuring out what everybody eats. Don't say no.
It's not that.
Okay, so
It's not that.
you just rest. You just rest.
My face is red. I got some sun today, y'all.
So it would be, "Hey, Lori, what's for dinner?" Okay,
Mhm.
well, first of all, I just walked in. If I'm cooking, it's probably spaghetti, and the water's boiling, and the noodles are there, and the spaghetti sauce is on the counter, and they're asking me.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, "Go ask your dad." That's it.
Yep.
Now, something else that helped with that was having a board where you listed what was for dinner.
Mm-hmm.
That way, if they ask, you didn't have to say, "Go ask your dad." You could just point to the board.
Ask the board.
Point to
The board knows all.
And you don't say, "I don't know, stupid. I'm fixing spaghetti noodles and sauce. What do you think I'm cooking?"
Would you see me cooking?
Yeah. Or do you not know the board's right over there?
Yeah. It is funny how many times that we talk to some parents and they'll talk, or step parents, and they'll talk about how they're having issues. And, I try to tell them to go ask their dad, and I try to tell them that it's on the board. Then when you start talking to them and you figure out how they're doing it, it's like, no wonder you're getting the kind of response that you're getting, or no wonder people are mad at you because of that, because you're being rude about it and ill about it.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, there's other issues going on. Like, you're still in a position where
You're angry,
yeah, you're hurt and you're angry and
resentful.
yeah, all these other things. And actually, we have a 30-day challenge just for that inside the academy called the Change Your Stinking Thinking.
And I love that challenge. It's my favorite one.
Yeah. So, and to kind of go back to what you were saying earlier, you said something about you were taking it to the extreme measure because of where we were. Mm-hmm. It's important also to note that nacho parenting is kind of a range, a gradient, so to speak.
Right. Like a nacho supreme, nacho grande, nacho light.
Nacho light.
Yeah. Nacho with just meat.
So however you want to name it. But there are people, we were certainly in that camp, where you had to just cut off all communication unless it was initiated by the stepkid.
Right.
And even then, it had to be short and sweet.
And yes, if it was negative by the stepkid. Okay, so here's a good example. I see this all the time. People will say, my stepkid is disrespectful and rude to me. And they'll say they're nachoing. And then I'll say, what action makes them respond to you that way? Mm. And they say, when I tell them to clean their room. If you're telling them to clean their room, you're not nachoing. Unless that was agreed upon between you and your partner, or it's a house rules that was agreed upon. Mm-hmm. And then it's even best to say, remember, your dad said.
Yeah. And this is why I think people have some trouble with trying to implement nacho parenting, is because there's not like, oh, here's the 10 rules and follow them exactly this way and it'll work. It's not exactly like that. It's more like, here's the 10 rules. I'm just using that as a number. Here's the 10 rules. And there's a lot of different little if-thens within every single one of them, mm-hmm. which is why it's so important to have that feedback that we give you when we're working with you, because you could look at one and go, okay, I'm going to do it exactly like Lori and David said on this podcast episode. And you do it, and you're like, oh, that didn't work. So therefore, nacho parenting doesn't work.
Yeah, it can backfire completely.
Yeah.
Because your situation's different.
Yep. The other thing, too, that we want to do is we want to see, over time, we want to see some of those things change. So when we talk about how the kids came in, you didn't say anything to them unless they said something to you. What we want to do is we want to see a progression to where you can start saying things to them. And it doesn't build resentment in you and anger in you if they don't respond. And hopefully they do start responding because they start having more of a relationship with you. And so they won't be ignoring you as much. And so we want to see that progression moving forward. And like you said, there's no time frame for that. It's not, this is going to happen in 30 days or less, or 90 days or less, or a year or less. It's different for everybody. Right. But we do see, one universal thing we do see is we do see in a very quick period of time, and I'll say within 30 days, almost every single person says, it's amazing the change I've seen already. Mm-hmm. That happens almost every single time.
Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't, we find out that there's something that's off. Mm-hmm. There's something they didn't mention. There's something that we didn't know about that threw off what they needed to do, or they needed to look deeper into a certain subject.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So if your stepkid is rude to you or disrespectful, why are you talking to them? And if you're just sitting there and they walk by and they're like, I hate you, just ignore them. Don't engage.
Yeah. And that sounds difficult. However, here's what we're trying to here's what we're trying to avoid happening. And you'll understand what we're trying to make happen, I think. If not, we'll spell it out. Where this can go wrong is, let's say a kid walks by, a kid says something nasty. You say something nasty back. Now there becomes this struggle, this war, this whatever, this battle. It's not going to work out well for the step-parent. And what happens is now all the focus becomes what you did as the step-parent.
Yeah, forget what little Johnny did wrong.
Right.
He could have set the woods on fire. Mm-hmm. And that's not going to be the issue. The issue is going to be how you responded to your partner's kid.
Right. So me as a bio parent, instead of me saying my kid was a complete jerk and I need to handle that, it becomes, now I've got to deal with why my significant other responded to little Johnny that way, and they're supposed to be the adult and all that. And now we got this big knockdown drag out between my significant other, or just say Lori and my kid.
And Lori and you.
Yes. And then if the kid goes out and drags bio mom into it, or aunts and uncles into it, and mamas and papas into it, it becomes a huge mess.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why we say, just don't say anything. Because if you don't say anything, then what happens is I, as the bio parent, sees little Johnny being a jerk.
Mm-hmm.
And I can address that problem because there's no other cascading problems that happened afterwards.
Because I'm not interfering.
Yes. You take the target off of you and you leave it where it started.
Yes.
Which is with little Johnny.
Yep.
I'm glad I don't have a little Johnny.
And we did not say this before. You never nacho safety.
Good point.
Safety being what is defined by some kind of child services. Meaning, if the kid can't feed themselves, you help with that. If the kid needs help changing a diaper, you do that.
Kind of in your other examples you gave earlier, like if the kid walks in and says, I want an apple, or for example, or I'm thirsty, there's a huge difference between a kid being 3 and a kid being 13.
Right.
We can't have this is nacho parenting for 3-year-olds, for 4-year-olds, for 5-year-olds, come on.
Right.
That's when you have to use some common sense to say.
That's why I want to know everybody's story when they work with us in the academy.
Yeah.
Just tell me your story. Tell me how long you've been blending, the dynamics of that blend.
Yeah, ages
That's
of the kids.
the same thing I ask. And even the sexes of the kids, not because I'm trying to identify anybody as anything, but just for the simple fact of girls have different relationships with stepmoms than they do with stepdads and vice versa.
Yeah. So all of it matters.
All of it matters.
Every single bit of information matters.
Even how you grew up matters. So depending on how you were raised may have a lot to do with how you parent. And for me, the way I parent was intentionally opposite of how my parents parented.
Mm-hmm.
Because I wanted a different relationship with my child than they had with me. And my son's pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. He is.
He is. So the question of, does it mean you're ignoring the stepkids? No, it means you're not engaging.
Mm-hmm.
Give them at least the minimum respect that you would a stranger on the street or a friend's kid. Oh, I heard it. I heard somebody say it. If that was my friend's kid, I'd tear their tail up. Well, somebody that's not your friend, a new friend.
Right.
And for people that are just starting to blend and you're not in the thick of things, so you're like, how do I nacho from the beginning? Continue acting like you're dating.
Yep.
Don't change how you act towards your partner or your kid or your stepkids when it comes to that family dynamic. Mm-hmm. You are still the partner of their parent.
Yep.
You're not a step anything to them.
That's why so many people say it was great until we got married or until I moved in or until that relationship changed.
Well, we talk about it often too. You can live together 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
You get married, boom, reset.
Yep.
A baby comes in the picture, boom, reset.
Mm-hmm.
One of the kids decides to go live with mom more or dad more, boom, reset. Any big changes in the blend create a reset in certain aspects of that blend.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. One last thing I want to say.
Oh, Lord. I feel like this is at me.
No, it's not at you. I really hate when I see people who get to the point where things aren't bad. They're not great. They're just not bad. Like the pressure's off. Mm-hmm. And then they stop. They're like, we don't really need to do any additional work. We don't need to continue to learn all the tools that we need to learn. Things are good. We're at a good spot. And inevitably, they come back 6 months to a year later, and things are worse. And I say that because this is going to be like a secret. Don't tell anybody.
I hate it when you do that because I can't hear it when you do it.
But you'll learn that nacho parenting is more of a way of life and that it's something that you have to continue to do all the time. It's the same as if you're working out. Mm-hmm. Once you get to a certain point, whether you're working out or you're dieting or something like that, you get to a certain point, you might like where you are, but you have to continue to do whatever you did to get there, to stay there. If you don't, you go back to being what you were before.
Exactly.
You're always changing, whether it's you personally or you as a family. Everybody's always changing. You're either moving ahead or you're moving back, but you're never staying in the same spot. And all that depends on you. So there you go. There's my public service announcement for today.
David's off his soapbox.
Yep.
All right. See you next time.
Yep. Bye.